What's up, YouTubers? Today we're going to talk about the Zermeno knives Tyr. Norse mythology, Tyr was the one whose hand I think was bitten off by Fenrir. Don't know much about Norse mythology, and neither does Will Zermeno, but he just thought it was a cool name and had read about it. So that's why it got its name this. This is obviously designed by Will Zermeno. This knife has a 3.6-inch blade of AEBL steel. Let's see, yeah, AEBL listed right there. And that's a very good and well-balanced steel. Very tough, decent stainlessness, just very good overall. This knife weighs 8.7 ounces and prices at $450. It is a full titanium frame lock with a few pops of color with the hardware there, titanium hardware. This took about 3 months to work out the lock stick. We'll talk about that, but it works fairly beautifully now. I just had to get the mating right and really go through several thousand, if you will. So this knife, oh yeah, you could tell. We're already jumping to the strengths of this one. But let's take a look at a few comparison knives here. First one I think that is probably a fairly solid comparison is the Freeman Knives 451. That is a button lock and full titanium button lock. That's kind of in that realm. I think the Demco Knives 8020 is also a pretty good comparison. These are kind of I won't say full-size bruisers, but semi-bruisers, pretty decent-sized knives. They're all over 3.5-inch blades. They all have really decent-sized handles for medium, large, and large hands. So I think those are some really good options and comparisons there. In the more budget realm, a kind of gigantic one would be the Cold Steel Formax. This is going to be obviously a little bit more on your budget end. These go for, I don't know, somewhere in between like 200 and maybe 350 or something. It's S35 VN steel. They're made in Taiwan. But this is kind of the higher end model of the Formax. There's also the Formax Scout, which uses the AUS-10A steel and just has their grivery. This is full G10 here, though. So that would be kind of, I think, also, in the big knife arena. But for me, the one that really stands out is kind of a comparison is in terms of when I carried it. I was like, yeah, it kind of feels like this in hand, the way that the handle fits. Other than the small swell, this is the Hinderer Knives XM24, as I call it, the 27, because it's about 30% bigger, and not necessarily just like 25% bigger than the XM18. Yeah, it maybe 50% rather. So that's kind of what I felt, certainly in hand. The blade profile is obviously a little bit different. You have that shorter blade profile, but that's kind of what I think you're looking at in here. And this, of course, I actually have my own customized titanium scale of skulls. Pretty cool, actually. I just wanted to see how ridiculous it was, where the placement of that lanyard hole is, and it is kind of ridiculous. Let's jump into this knife. This knife, as far as the pros go, the action is absolutely fantastic. Let's just show it. Whether you're doing the Spidey flick from the backside, the thumb works great. Left-handed works great. Thumb. I got to be a little bit more careful here, just because with the left hand putting any pressure on there, but it works really good. So as a lefty, This is great. And in fact, I'm going to jump right to the one of the other pros of this knife is this clip is mountable. It's nice and symmetrical, and it appears to be mountable completely from this side. Whether or not those are longer screws or not, you could just flip-flop those over, and it would work kind of nicely. So for lefties, it's not often that you get a lot of frame lock love. This would be one of those, definitely. That's for me. That's one of the first things that stood out. I was just like, oh yes, and I kind of like the clip. It does bunch up the pants a little bit, but that's because you're dealing with an 8.7 ounce knife, which is a handful in the pocket. Really love it. The action is just like I said. It's for a big bruiser. I absolutely love it. I would have it no other way on this one. Just love it. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Medium large hands fit in this knife like a glove. It's just perfect. If you wanted to choke back because you needed to reach out a little bit further, that would work. The choke up is great. You can actually, in fact, this is the position I found myself using more than anything is it just slides right up, and then you just have a great choke up right there. So really love that. I can't say enough about that. Let's talk about the blade. This shape is just fairly badass, really. If you take a look at it, it's got this nice harpoon with a big belly clip point. Just absolutely love it. The deployment hole location is perfect. I think it provides really good access. No need to bevel any of this frame down really there, just because you can get very solid access to it. I think in terms of the location of it, where it is, especially relative to that harpoon top, really good. And then last thing is the AABL. That's a really good steel. Talking about AABL, that's the most recently released from Spyderco, from their Mule series. Whoa, flying knives there is from Maniago, but they have the AABL. Be on the lookout for an upcoming coverage of that one. Yeah, it's really interesting, the Spyderco Mule series, but this is a special AABL heat treat on that one. I'm not sure about this one. Will does not necessarily publish an HRC or that sort of thing. I don't overly concern myself. Anything in the 59 and higher. I'm used to using 1095 in outdoor knives that I just beat up, and you know what? When they have the softer hardness, they tend to actually sharpen up a little bit easier. So it's really a series of trade-offs. I really am not somebody that frets that as much. It's kind of cool, but for me, not a big deal. I already talked about the clip left-handed, and then the last thing that you might laugh at $450, but this is a great value. I mean, this is an American-made, handmade knife, and you see all that went into it, the design and everything, the materials. Go try to buy yourself a slab of titanium that's going to be, basically makeable, so to speak, into this form. And you're going to be shocked. This is definitely one of those things that I think is truly an amazing value. So let's talk a little bit about the cons. The cutting on this one, you saw in the front side montage, it cut okay, and it did cut well. It's just not great. It's a very shallow hollow grind. I do appreciate that it's a hollow grind. I use the heck out of this. You can see all that, the markings. But it was just a little bit shallow. So this one I am actually going to be sending it off for a regrind through BGM Knives. But hey, I saved a lot of money, so I can pay for that, to have that regrind on it, and it'll be worth it. It's still going to be a value knife at that point in time. So we'll talk about, that at the end. The exposed detent ball on the blade or the receiver point for the detent ball, it just slightly shows itself. Now, when you kind of take a look at this knife, I looked at, could it be tucked back in? And the answer is it can't be tucked back in, because as it rotates around, it would be further away from where that is, and the detent ball is on the absolute verge and edge of that. So that would be a tough one to do. For my money, as a design, I would probably just extend that material just the slightest bit, just to cover up that detent ball, just to prevent gunk from getting in there. It's not a huge deal, but sometimes I'll use whatever knife is in my pocket to cut things like drywall, gypsum, and I don't want to get gypsum right in that detent ball there. Not that it's going to make a difference if it's tucked back in a little bit behind, but maybe maybe it will. So just that's kind of a minor nitpick, but a little bit. The T8 screws were very shallow. Just knowing that that I am sending this thing off for some work, not only for the grind, but I'm going to have a little work done on the shell of this, or the frame of this. but they're very, very shallow. They literally go about 1 millimeter deep. Actually, it's a little less than 1 millimeter. So it's just one of those things to really be aware of, is if you're going to take this apart, or, especially if you're going to move that clip over to the left side, just be aware they're very shallow. So that would definitely be something I'd like to have a little more depth in those. They are in fact T8, so I do appreciate that. I didn't check the pivot. It's definitely not T8. It's like a T12 or 15. It's quite big. So yeah, that's good, and that's actually plenty deep. I just taking a look at it. It's nice. And then the last thing is, there was a little bit of lock stick. The lock is mating up very well with the Tang right now. That's taken 3 months and literally thousands of flips though. Initially out of the gate, just because you have a little bit of cant, meaning a little bit of an angle on your blade, but your lock bar is going against it, it creates a small pinch point right there. And that's, as that started to mate together, it's doing much, much better. Nothing that a little bit of Sharpie and graphite won't do. And like I said, now the thing is an absolute dream. So if you're willing to have a little bit of patience, this knife, oh my, you're going to love it. Overall, I would say this is an excellent platform for a bruising knife or bruiser knife, with a few things to address. But because you save so much money on this, I'm going to be able to actually customize this the way I want and still get it out the door with a very fair price. Absolutely love it. I kind of think of this one in the end as kind of like people do that utilize Jeeps. In the four-wheel drive world, they say you buy a Jeep to build a Jeep, and that's where you want to customize and do your own stuff, right? Versus Toyota owners, sometimes. All right, sorry, Toyota owners. I actually own them myself. But for the most part, Toyota owners want to buy it with everything that it's going to have, other than maybe a few customizations. But Jeep people are like, give me a platform, and then I want to go ahead and build on that. This is that platform. And so for my money, this is absolutely just a dream and a charm. Like I said, I've been carrying this for the most part for 3 months, and I just love it. The action is literally still as perfect as it was the day I got it. So hope this was of use. If it was, I appreciate the like and subscribe, and have a great day. Take care now. Tyr is in Norse mythology with the one whose hand I think was eaten off by Fenrir. Not that it means anything, but Will Zermeno thought it just sounded like a cool name, and I agree. It's kind of interesting spelling, Tyr as well. So this is obviously designed by Will Zermeno.